The clip on the mic. Hi everyone. We're having a few obstacles to coming to you today. Somehow our internet line is cut down in Dharamsala, so we haven't had any internet today, and they're working on it. So what we needed to do, we're now just doing it with the internet on a phone. We're sitting somewhere down in a retreat hut. And unfortunately, we are not able to live stream, do we? No.
We'll put up the recordings.
So the recordings will be put up later. So we can't let anyone know on Facebook. Maybe you can let some people know on Facebook. Okay. How are you all today? Here it's rainy, foggy, really pleasant monsoon day. I hope you are having better conditions than we have, but I'm very happy that we are online, and I'm stretching it a little bit in order for everyone to join who wants to. Yes, all is part of life. Pune is pouring cats and dogs. Yes, some people were, and in Mumbai it's raining as well. Whole India is crying. Yes. Hyderabad is foggy. Lauderdale is sunny. Where is Lauderdale? Florida is very sunny today. Yeah, you're very lucky. But I think it's hot in Florida, no? Delhi clouds, no rain. Missouri is cloudy. Delhi is not too sticky. Goa is sunny. Wow. Love the forest scene. Yeah, we are really in a retreat hut in the forest. No pictures. We had no time to set anything up except me just in front of the camera. So that's what we have to do it with. Let me see. Recovering from the heat wave in Holland. I think you had a big storm with a lot of rain coming out. New York is sunny. Istanbul is sunny. Oh, and Eleanor is in New Zealand in nighttime. Very courageous, Eleanor. I appreciate that you stay awake so late. Bangalore. Sun has forgotten Bangalore. That means it's not sunny there. Kerala is sunny, pleasant weather in Dehradun. Wonderful. Okay, shall we start? Welcome everyone. Number 4 in a series of 6 sessions on becoming your own therapist. Yesterday, or maybe this morning, I sent the file or the document that I used yesterday on the 8 worldly dharmas or the 8 worldly concerns, and I put it in the folder of the Google Drive, and I think you all got a link to that from Antonin when you registered. So you can find there the file, and so you can look it up and use it for reflecting on it. Let's start today with a little meditation and setting a good motivation before we go into the teachings. So make yourself comfortable. And bring your mind to your body. letting go of all the thoughts that were occupied in the past, all the thoughts that are already jumping into the future. Let them all come to rest by bringing your mind to your body. When your mind is with your body, your mind is in the present moment. And when the mind is in the present moment, it naturally comes to rest. All the delusions come to rest. All the busyness, the thoughts come to rest. And when the busyness comes to rest, the mind becomes more clear. And then we can set up a positive motivation for listening, reflecting, and meditating today. By thinking that we are in exactly the same situation as everybody else. All sentient beings want to be happy, want to be free from suffering. And we have this good fortune of having found the teachings that are a guide for us finding the way out of suffering, teaching us methods that we can apply to reduce suffering, to eliminate suffering, and to create the causes for happiness. And so that good fortune has come about in dependence upon others. That does not just depend on us. So then whatever benefit comes from our good fortune, let's dedicate that and use that for the benefit of all. And then we can start the teaching. I'm sorry, I didn't bring the little gong. Oh, there is the gong. Philippe has everything on his phone. He is taking care of the internet. He's taking care of the phone. So there was a question already. Does the mind experience the self as a feeling? That can be. That is an option. Sometimes when feelings arise in the mind, we say, that's me. Then we identify with the feeling as being the self. Sometimes we identify as the self, the one that is observing the mind. Sometimes we identify our attachment as being the self, or our anger as being the self. I am so angry. Then anger is the self. So we can impute self onto any aspect of the mind, any aspect of the body, and say, that is me. Right? And we're correct if we say that. Okay. So we will talk more about the self and how it exists and how it appears to exist, and how we can work with the mind so that the self-grasping mind becomes less strong. We do that tomorrow. Okay. So today I'll start with a little recap from yesterday. So yesterday we spoke about conditioned existence. Conditioned existence means that under the influence of karma and delusions, we take rebirth. So we take rebirth in a body that is under the influence of karma and delusions. And then this body also produces constantly karma and delusions. So being under the influence of karma and delusions means that we lack freedom. It is the karma and the delusions that determine what happens to us and how we react, right? It appears to us as if we are free to make our own decisions. But I hope that after this course, you're going to see that actually it's your attachment and aversion that makes most of your decisions. So this lack of freedom, and due to that, taking rebirth in a body that is controlled by karma and delusions, that is what we call conditioned existence. And the root of that conditioned existence is that we grasp at a self. We grasp at the self to exist in a way that it appears. We believe that the way the self appears to us, that self exists like that in actuality. But when we start analyzing, and we do that tomorrow, then we can see that in actuality, the self exists in the totally opposite way as how we perceive it. It appears to us as being a unitary entity, you know, a single thing, which is permanent, not changing, which is independent of causes and conditions, independent of the body, independent of the mind. And having that kind of appearance means that it appears to exist inherently, as if it has an objective existence in and of itself. And we already saw that if we look for such a self within the body and within the mind, or even outside the body and the mind, then we cannot find such a self. Not finding such a self, does that mean that the self doesn't exist? No, the self does exist. Because I can talk about me, I can talk about the self, I can talk about I. So the self does exist. But the self, the way it appears to us as that permanent, unitary, independent entity, such a self does not exist. An inherently existent self does not exist. But conventionally, we can say, I exist, the self exists. So how does the self exist? It arises in dependence on causes and conditions. It arises in dependence upon its parts. It arises in dependence on the mind imputing it. And so if we think about what Tibetan Buddhism, the most subtle view in Tibetan Buddhism, how they define the self, they say that the self is that which is merely imputed in dependence upon any of the 5 aggregates. Or to say that in our language, on the body or the mind. So that means the self is not the body, the self is not the mind, but the self is imputed in dependence on the body and the mind. All right, so that means that conventionally I can call body and mind the I, but the body and the mind is not that I. The self is imputed independence on the body and the mind. It is therefore something different from the body and the mind. And so what we perceive as the self, we perceive the self to be more concrete, more solid. Sometimes even it feels like it is a substance, while in actuality it is extremely subtle. And so as long as we are in cyclic existence, we hold on to the self to exist in that more solid, substantial way. And in dependence on that self, we experience certain needs. We experience the need for love, the need for connection, the need for protection, and many more needs, right? And we use our attachment and our aversion to take care of these needs. And also all the other disturbing emotions that arise in dependence on attachment and aversion. And you can think about that. Any emotion that arises in the mind, which is a reaction to your situation, is in order to fulfill your needs. Or it is in order to, you know, when you receive something that you don't want, in order to separate you from that. And so yesterday we saw that the self is mainly concerned with the needs of this life. And what is driving us is these 8 worldly concerns, right? We spoke about them. Being happy when we acquire material things or comfort, and being unhappy when we don't acquire that. Craving for the pleasures of the 6 senses and not wanting the unpleasantness that we can experience in dependence on the 6 senses. So there was a question about what is the 6th sense? You know, I know the 5 senses, which is my visual perception, the hearing, the tasting, the smelling, and the touching. But what is the 6th one? That is the mental perception. So I can think about objects. And when I think about pleasant objects, or I can think about certain objects that give me pleasant feelings. Right? So then in dependence upon the 6th sense, I experience pleasure. All right, that was to address that question. So I already said, mentioned 4 of these worldly concerns, and then we had 4 more, which was that we want to hear interesting or beautiful sounds, ego-pleasing sounds. We want people to tell us how wonderful we are, and we do not want to hear the opposite. And we also want to be praised. You know, we want to have a good reputation. We want to be admired by people, and we do not like to be criticized or blamed. So we are concerned with that, and I hope that you have thought about that yesterday, today, how that motivates these 8 worldly concerns, how they motivate your life, your actions, how they keep us busy. And so these 8 worldly concerns, they are all about me, right? I want to be happy. I want to have this. I do not want to have that. And so if we are putting a lot of energy in satisfying that I, in finding that I what it needs and helping that I to be separated from what it doesn't want, the I becomes very strong. And in dependence on that sense of I, the other starts to appear. There is only other because I experience the I so strong. And so the stronger we hold on to the self, the more we feel separate from others, the more I become solid and others become solid. And so the more solid they become, the more separation you will experience. And so we can see that nowadays, you know, what is happening in the world, where we experience a lot of fear for a virus, which is actually, it means fear for sickness, fear for death. And so this causes this self-grasping mind to be more tight. You know, we're more concerned about ourselves. And so in dependence on that, we start to fear. And then we are told, let me say it like this, we are told that the danger for our own life can come from others. And so the danger that we fear can come from any of our fellow human beings. And suddenly we feel like, oh no, I don't want to be close to you anymore. You know, oh, you should wear a mask. Oh no, we have to keep distancing. And so not only do we do social distancing, but we have this aversion arising in the mind due to the fear of our own life, our own health, due to our self-grasping mind. We want to keep that other person distant. And sometimes people have so much fear that it is almost like everyone around them turns into an enemy, a potential killer, a potential carrier of the virus. You know, and then me and others becomes very separate. And as human beings, we all have that need for connection, right? When we have connection, when we feel love in the mind, love in the heart, love in the mind, whatever you want to call it, we feel love. When there is connection, there is love. And when there is love, we thrive. We feel happy, right? We can take so much more when there is love. And what we are doing at the moment, due to the self-cherishing mind, the self-grasping mind, is like, oh, I do not want to get sick. I do not want to die. And you could be the one who's going to cause that to me, right? So we create a lot of separation. And so that's very difficult for our minds. You know, it makes the mind very unhappy. But it happens just in our mind, which means we can change that. So in dependence upon that self-grasping, you know, the fear of me getting harmed, we also have the self-cherishing mind arising in the mind. And the self-cherishing mind feels like, my life, I am more important than you are. You know, I need to protect my life, and I'm allowed to do whatever to you in order to make sure that I'm going to be protected. So I can be rude, I can be less kind, I can be less gentle, just stay away from me. You know, that's the self-cherishing mind. My happiness is more important than your happiness. So when the self-grasping and the self-cherishing mind are strongly arising in our mind, you know, we care so much less for others. It's all about me. And our behavior changes. We do actions that we have never done before. Right? Due to causes and conditions, we engage in not such kind actions. We cannot show the kindness that we actually have inside us. And so this is a really good time to look at that self-grasping mind and the self-cherishing mind. You know, due to the conditions, they get so triggered that they're there right in our face, right? We can investigate that object of negation so easily because it is right there. All right, so we can be grateful for the situation in that regard. So today we will start looking into how we can do things differently, in a way that it leads to more happiness and less suffering, not just for ourselves, but also for everyone that we come in contact with. And I think the first thing to look at in this respect is into the relationship that we have with ourselves. And after that, we will talk about how we can stop creating the causes for suffering, which are karma and delusions. Isn't fear due to a virus a form of self-compassion? So self-compassion means you have the wish to be free from suffering, right? That's fine. But we spoke about what is suffering. Suffering is not just the suffering of suffering. Suffering is also being the suffering of conditioned existence, the suffering of change, right? So when we react under the influence of fear, what we use is our aversion, and what we are afraid of is just the suffering of suffering. I don't call that self-compassion, I call that selfish. Sorry. And of course, you know, it is all right to protect yourself. But fear is not a good protector. Fear is often based on no reasoning at all. Fear is based on you have heard that there is a threat directly to you. But if we look rationally at what is going on, you know, how dangerous the virus is, you know, you have to say the chance that you get it is extremely small. And the fear that is at the moment in the mind is not related at all to the risk for the virus. You have much more risk to die from hunger in this world. You have much more risk to die from cancer, from heart disease, from so many other diseases that you don't even fear. And in actuality, you are creating, by eating the food that you're eating, by your lifestyle, you are creating all causes to die from these diseases, but you don't care, you know. But then we have all this fear for this little virus that hardly any one of us is gonna get. So fear, I don't think, is a good compass. It's not a good guide to follow. Better to look at the facts, and then better to see self-compassion in the big picture, not just this life, but over all lives. You know, we identify in this life with the self as this is me, but the self, you know, if the moment I die and I'm going to be reborn, I still, my next rebirth, I still call that self. Although I have a different body and I'm a different person, I still call that this is me. So how do I behave so that I take care not just of this self, but of the selves, all the selves that are going to come in the future? So then somebody says, if I'm right, Stephen Hawking was able to live only because of his attachments. I would say you need to investigate that, you know, because what is killing us is our attachment. If we have no attachment, we can sustain our life much longer. It is attachment that makes us sick. It is attachment that eventually kills us. So I wonder, you know, I think attachment can be a motivator, and he lived so much longer than you could expect with somebody with his disease. So maybe there were other forces in his mind, you know, and he might have called that attachment to, I don't know, was it women or, but I think something else might have driven him, you know, which is not connected to attachment. So somebody says, many in my neighborhood have contracted COVID, and also my relatives, even a friend died from it. So therefore it makes sense to take precautions such as social distancing, etc. If the virus is so close, you know, of course you take your precautions, but you don't have to do that under the influence of fear, right? You use your common sense. and you do whatever is needed so that you do not get infected. But we have to watch our aversion and our attachment, you know. It is okay to have physical distance, but are we going to treat the other person rude because they might carry the virus and we don't want to have it? Or can we keep treating other beings with the same loving kindness as before, and at the same time have that distance? Right? We have to check these delusions. I'm talking about the self-grasping mind and the self-cherishing mind. They become very strong when there is a lot of fear in the mind. They are not healthy guides. What we need to have is our common sense, is our rational thinking, right? And it might be that we contract the virus, you know, we have to accept that also as part of life. Thinking that you can prevent this little thing and then you're going to be happy is, I think, I don't know, I don't really understand it. It is not just this, there is so much more. First, they create corona disease in the mind on the energy level out of fear, and then it comes into physical matter. I definitely think, you know, I don't know how it is created and how it works, but I definitely think that fear is not so good for our immune system, right? Fear normally is in our mind if there is acute danger, and acute danger means it is there for a very short period of time. Then after that, the body and the mind recover and go back to their natural condition. But if fear stays in the mind for a long time, it wears us out. So that's very, very dangerous for our health. So if we can go beyond our fear and look with our common sense, if we go beyond our self-grasping mind, you know, and I do not want to have it just over COVID, but I want you to see that self-grasping mind, that self-cherishing mind. And what we do is, and I think I mentioned that before, when the emotions come up, the fear, the attachment, the aversion, we use our rational mind to justify that reaction. We are emotional beings. And what we're trying to do is we're trying to transform our mind so that the mind is not just coming from an emotion and just from me, but that we become, because that it's like little children, you know, I want this, I do not want to have that. This is how we react. But if we want to grow up, if we want to mature into human beings, adult human beings, we need to be able to be with suffering, to bear suffering without getting so disturbed in the mind. We need to be able to stay kind to people, even when they hurt us. You know, these are qualities that arise in dependence on a lot of practice, and that practice is conjoined with reasoning, so that you can see that that emotional reaction that we have, especially when we are threatened, that is, it looks like it is serving you, but it is not. It is not. It is the cause of all your problems. Right? So you can apply whatever rules you want in order to prevent yourself from getting sick. I'm not talking about that outer display of things. I'm talking about your mind that is applying these rules. What kind of mind is that? You know, where are you coming from? Are you just coming from fear, or can you let go of that fear? Because if we can let go of the fear, you know, we can be of so much benefit to the world. But if we are caught up in that fear, it's just me, me, me. And there is no space for anybody else. And there is no way that we can help others when we are in that condition. So we're going to talk about how we can, first of all, be more loving to ourselves, right? So what we do is, you know, we react with attachment to pleasant feelings and aversion to unpleasant feelings. If we know how to be with unpleasant feelings, how to accept them, and even maybe embrace them, and if we know how we can enjoy pleasant feelings without clinging to them, we make a really good start, right? So we have that strong preference for certain experiences, pleasant experiences, and we have a strong aversion for the opposite experience. But we can see the same in ourselves. You know, we like certain aspects in ourselves, but we do not like other aspects in ourselves. So that duality that we experience in the world, there are good things that we can indulge in, and there are things that we really need to avoid. That duality is also in our own mind, with respect to our own self. If there are aspects in ourselves that we do not like, we treat these aspects worse than anybody else in the world. And I need you to recognize these parts of yourself. You know, whether that is, I'm not good enough, I'm not worthy, I'm not lovable. What is that in you that you don't like? When I listen to students, most of them, some don't, you know, but most of them have deep down inside something that they almost hate. And in Tibetan Buddhism, there is nothing written about this, you know, about how you relate to yourself. And so when His Holiness was, I think it was in the 70s, he was giving a talk to Westerners. And somebody asked him a question and said, what do I do with that self-hate? And he said, what is he talking about? To the translator, he said, I don't understand. And the translator said, well, he's talking about self-hate. He said, what's that, self-hate? Well, when you hate yourself. And His Holiness was, hating yourself? Why would you do that? And so he said to everyone, who else is having such a feelings? And then almost everybody put up their finger. And he was shocked. And he said, how can you hate yourself? You all have Buddha nature. You all have the potential to become a Buddha. And you all have a perfect human rebirth, where we have the capacity to develop these qualities. You are so fortunate. How can you hate yourself? So for him, this was totally, he had never heard of that. And when I listened to the old teachers, the one old in age, you know, they have no idea about what we're talking about. The younger ones, they start seeing it. And they also see it in the students, you know. But the older ones, it's almost like that is not in the Tibetan culture of 50, 60 years ago. But nowadays it starts coming also in the Tibetan culture, you know, and some people think it is maybe because the life is so competitive. You know, we have to be the best, always striving to be the best. And only one person can be the best. And all the others, even when they strive hard, it's not good enough because you're not the best. And so then it is easy to become frustrated with yourself because you do not have value because of the way of who you are, just as a person. But your value is determined by your qualities, how you perform. If we get our self-worth out of how we perform, and only the winners are seen as the one who have self-worth, that is a bad message for most of us. We would all become with less value, with less worth, because we're not the best. So that is very difficult in our society, very difficult for the relationship with ourselves. So then on top of that, if I look at my own life and my generation, I have a Catholic background, and it was almost like it is, you get it with a spoon. Do you say that like that? We say with a porridge spoon, but that sounds a little bit strange in English. You get it from the beginning. You learn that you're just there to serve. Your life has no worth to live for yourself. You are only living in order to serve others. That is how I grew up. So you learn that you are not worthy of living for yourself. As if, and some people talk about, this, we are sinners from the beginning, as if we are inherently bad. And so then we have to make up for that. We have to make up for that. That inherently bad part of us, we shouldn't show that. We need to keep hiding that, because that is ugly and that is selfish, and that is, we should never let that come to the surface. But then instead of that, we just have to be there for others, kind and nice to others, but not to ourselves, because we are inherently bad. So that can be part of your upbringing. And then it can also be that you have experienced traumatic events in your life. Traumatic in the sense that doesn't necessarily mean that somebody was inflicting a trauma on you, but due to the conditions, you might have gotten the message that you're not good enough, or that you're not worthy, or that you're not lovable. Maybe your mom was too busy with her own emotional distress and couldn't give you personal attention. Then as a child, you might feel, I'm not worthy. I'm not worthy. Right? And so when we make these conclusions, normally what we do is that looks so ugly, that part of us, that we just shut it off. We close the door and we decide we're never going to visit that again. And then we're going to try to make up for that, and if I feel that I'm not lovable, I try to show that I'm very kind. I might become the people pleaser, doing everything what everybody wants from me. I might become a doormat. You can walk over me, because deep inside I feel I'm not lovable. So I want to make up for that. So if you have such split, it's maybe splitting yourself sounds maybe a little bit too dramatic, but if you have aspects in yourself that you do not like, that you have turned away from, that you feel that you have to make up for, we first need to heal that. We first need to make, I would say, first we have to do a reality check. And then we have to, independence on that reality check. I'm sure that if you're really going to check if that's true, what you're feeling, that you're going to discover that that has nothing to do with who you are. These are beliefs that we adopt due to the circumstances. And these beliefs might be messages that we received from others, whether they were intentionally meant like that or not. And then we make them our own, and we believe that that is what we are. But I would say all these messages, you know, they were coming from others in difficult situations. And that all has nothing to do with you. Nothing. But you need to investigate that for yourself. You know, that you really can see, oh, there is nothing that exists like not good enough or not lovable. Because it feels like there is really something there. But if you look for it, you can't find that. So then how do we relate to ourselves? I think whatever you feel, good aspects or bad aspects, they are just aspects. And why, you know, the reason why we judge something as bad is because we feel it is not benefiting me. But if you could see that these aspects, if you look at them, they might actually, you might look at them and say, how could they be of benefit to me? Because all aspects in you, they are there to serve you. They are part of you. And all these aspects of you, they all are part of our Buddha potential. And so becoming a Buddha is not that we have to cut off certain parts of ourselves, eliminate certain parts of ourselves, and then only build up these good parts that we already have. Becoming a Buddha means that we wake up to the positive potential of each and every aspect, whether we judge it as something good or something bad. All these aspects have the potential to be transformed into the wisdom and the compassion of a Buddha. So embracing all the aspects in yourself. Being kind to all the aspects in yourself. And so these aspects especially surface when unpleasant feelings arise in the mind. For instance, when we fail, oh yeah, you know, I never can do it good enough. Or when we do something stupid, or when we cannot live up to our own expectations, or if we don't get what we want, you know, we say, I would really, I don't know, like to have this job, and then we don't get it. You know, then we feel that we fail ourselves, and then we don't like that. You know, of course, when you don't get a job that you want, unpleasant feelings arise, but you don't have to make that personally. You don't have to start beating yourself up for that. But you should be with that unpleasant feeling in a loving and compassionate way, so that you can digest that disappointment in a way that it becomes a healing experience. So how can we be compassionate with ourselves when unpleasant feelings arise? So instead of having a mind that says, I do not want this suffering, instead of having the mind of aversion, we need to be able to say, okay, there is suffering. I accept the suffering. This is part of life. This is part of my life. It has come to my mind. Therefore, I take it. And so instead of running away, trying to suppress the feeling, ignoring the feeling, denying the feeling, instead of that, you stay mindful of the feeling and you observe what arises in your mind. And you try to be non-judgmental and accepting towards the feeling, towards aversion that might arise, towards yourself having this. You are a suffering human being. You know, if you beat yourself up while you're suffering, you suffer even more. And we want to be free from suffering. So first put down the stick, stop beating yourself up. Be present what is happening, acknowledge what is happening and say, okay, this is on my plate, I have to take it. And then instead of beating ourselves up with, you know, oh, you're so stupid and you should have done it like this and I told you, instead of doing that, we're going to talk kindly to ourselves. And we're going to say, wow, that feels really painful. And I know this is difficult for you, and I know, and you talk kindly. So that you can go through it, you know. You talk to yourself in the way that you would talk to your best friend who is going through a similar experience. And then you can remember that you are not the only person in this world experiencing this. When we feel unpleasant feelings, the mind becomes very small and it looks and separated. It feels separated. And so then we might think, you know, you get this feeling, I'm the only one, poor me, you know. But if we can reach out to others and connect with others in the sense that we think, I'm not the only person experiencing this. So many sentient beings are experiencing similar things or even worse. You know, I'm not alone in this. This is a human experience. This is not a personal thing. This is just on my plate today. Me as a human being living through this. And so these are the three aspects that are in the psychology described as being part of self-compassion: being mindful, developing kind self-talk, and remembering that we are not alone. And so if you want to know more about self-compassion, there is a website called www.selfcompassion.org where you can find meditations and where there is a whole list of resources where you can find more information. And you can also find a book written by, this sort of website is connected to Kirsten Neff, and she has written a book on self-compassion. And last month or the months before, I did a course on self-compassion, becoming friends with yourself. So you can also watch that on YouTube if you are interested in that. Unpleasant feelings are the result of negative karma, of having done harmful actions in the past. And so if we do not allow these experiences to surface, but instead blame ourselves for having these feelings, you know, being angry with ourselves that we are experiencing this, we might become depressed, where it's like a kind of suppression. So in order to break that cycle, it is important to sit with the feelings while holding yourself in loving kindness. You know, allowing to feel what you're feeling. And at the same time, you tell yourself, may you be well, may you be happy, may you have everything you need, you know, and you try to generate the feeling of love from your heart and you shower that over yourself. And then if you practice like that, your negative feelings will arise and then dissolve back into the mind, and then they're gone. And then slowly you can come out of your depression. So if you Google self-compassion, there is a question on where can I find it on the internet. You Google self-compassion and it comes up, you know. So the website is called www.selfcompassion.org. And there you can find all the resources. So to be compassionate with yourself, it's not enough to be just compassionate when you suffer. You also have to make sure that you do not create causes for suffering, right? Because according to Buddhism, all the suffering that arises comes because we somehow created the causes for these kind of experiences. So what is the cause of all our suffering? And I'm not sure if I can do the whole thing, but I'll talk 10-15 more minutes and then we go to the meditation. What is the cause for our suffering? The causes for suffering according to Buddhism is karma and delusions. So we'll first talk a little bit about karma, and then we look into how we can lessen and counteract the delusions. And then tomorrow we go into the specific delusions and how to counteract the root of the delusions, which is the self-grasping mind. And the day after tomorrow we'll talk about how we can counteract the self-cherishing mind, which arises independence on the self-grasping mind. So if we want to know what is self-compassion and what is selfishness, when are we selfish? Compassion is being selfish means that you act out of attachment or aversion or any delusion that comes from that. When you practice self-compassion, you actually do totally the opposite. When I'm selfish and unpleasant feelings arise, I react with aversion. I do not want to feel it. If I'm self-compassionate, I say, give it to me. I'll digest that feeling. I created the causes for that. I take it. And when pleasant feelings arise and I'm self-compassionate, then I'm not going to run after more pleasant feelings, but I enjoy the pleasant feeling fully. And then I know, due to what we're going to talk about now, how to create causes for more pleasant feelings to arise in the mind in the future. So it looks like a very fine line, you know, but I think it's a very thick line between being selfish and being self-compassionate. Selfish is always a self-grasping mind, always the delusions. Self-compassion doesn't come from the delusions. So let's talk a little bit about karma. Karma means that every action has an effect. And we have seen that our way of finding happiness is following our feelings. So Buddhism says feelings are actually the result of actions, the result of actions that we have done in the past. And when we cling onto feelings, you know, feelings is a result of actions done in the past. And then what we do is we cling onto them. And by clinging onto them, and that clinging can be either I want more of this or I want less of this, we create more karma. And by doing that, we create the causes for more future experiences. Clinging onto feelings is a disturbing emotion. And every action that we create under the influence of disturbing emotions has a suffering result. So in our attempt to find happiness and to be free from suffering, we actually create constantly causes for suffering in the future. This I find one of the hardest things to hear in Tibetan Buddhism, and it took me years to even be able to hear it. It cannot be true. That cannot be true. I'm not harming anyone if I do this, you know, nobody sees what I'm doing. How can, but it is coming from attachment and therefore creating causes for future suffering. So how does karma work? So I have an intention, I have attachment or aversion in my mind, and I act upon that. That intention causes an imprint in our mind, which then in the future will result in a similar experience. And karma can ripen in 4 ways. Karma can ripen in the sense that we take a rebirth, you know, and at the moment, having a human rebirth is the result of a huge amount of positive karma. So we had something really good ripening at the end of our last life. Our actions can also ripen in an experience similar to the cause, which means if I hit somebody, I create the causes for, at a certain point in time, to be hit back. Right? Something can come back to me in a similar way as that I have given it out, that I have put it out. Karma can also ripen in an experience similar to the action, which means that if I engage in an action, for instance, I have no money anymore, and the only way that I can see what I can do to sustain my life is I'm going to steal money, and I steal money and I can buy food for that, and somehow I feel relieved, right? But that also creates the cause for repeating that action and repeating that action. And so then we create a habit of saving ourselves in that way. So we can create an habit for negative actions. And these negative actions, they're going to ripen in suffering experiences in the future. And then the fourth way that karma can ripen is in the form of environmental results. You know, the environment in which we are born, in which we are living, in which we are traveling through, whatever we experience in the environment, that is also a result of our karma. So when we analyze the experiences that we have in life, whether what is coming to us, or when we investigate our mind and see the tendencies that we have in our mind, or when we analyze our environment, we can kind of understand our karma, you know, and we can understand where we're coming from and where we're going even more. You know, how our mind works at the moment shows us where we're going in the future. So in Buddhism, instead of being obsessed with feelings and following our feelings, we are more focused on the actions. Feelings is just the last little bit, the result of actions. So there's nothing to gain from holding on to feelings except you create negative karma. But when you instead focus on your actions, you actually can plant seeds again and again and again for future results, for future experiences. So then if that is true, we have to think what kind of actions create suffering. And so the actions that create suffering are non-virtuous actions, actions that are harmful to ourselves, that are harmful to others. So whatever we do to others will eventually come back to us. And so then in order to prevent suffering, we need to abstain from harmful actions. All harmful actions of body, speech, and mind. So negative actions means harmful actions. It's not that there is anyone out there judging, like, well, that is bad. No, when you do a negative action is defined as that what is gonna lead to suffering. It is negative because it's gonna lead to suffering for you. You are creating your own suffering, and you harm others. And so then, so we have to abstain from that, abstain from harming others. And then we can say what kind of actions lead to happiness in the future. And these are virtuous actions. Virtuous actions are already the abstaining from harm is a virtuous actions. And then on top of that, we can also do actions that benefit others. So in terms of abstaining from harm, we talk in Buddhism about the 10 non-virtuous actions that we abstain from. And these are 3 actions of body, which are killing, stealing, and sexual misconduct. 4 negative actions of the speech, which is lying, harsh speech, divisive speech, and gossip. And there are 3 negative actions of the mind, which is covetousness, malice, and wrong view. So you can find these 10 non-virtuous actions in any Lam Rim book. When you look under the section of karma, you can find them with very detailed explanation of what it means. And so benefiting others, the causes for happiness, is when we save or protect the life of other beings, when we practice generosity, and when we maintain pure sexual conduct, when we do not engage, when we stay loyal to our partner. That's the main one. And in terms of speech, by talking sincerely, truthfully, and directly, by making peace between people that hate each other, by talking calmly and gently, and by talking about meaningful things. And in terms of the mind, we create virtuous karma, we create positive actions by cultivating an open and generous mentality, by cultivating love and goodwill, and by cultivating a correct view of reality. And so cultivating virtuous actions of body, speech, and mind means that we act out of love, out of compassion, out of generosity, that we have moral conduct, that we have patience. And once we start doing that, the beauty of this is, once we start doing that, then whatever we wish for, you remember this list on the left side, on the blue list, what we are craving for, these things will come to us automatically. We do not have to run after them with our attachment. We create the causes for them so that they come to us due to our karma. They are a result of our karma. So this is how, so then you can say, how do we get what we need? By giving it to others. Right? If you are desperate to hear nice words, well, start saying them to others. If you are desperate for not being criticized, well, stop criticizing others. If you want to have nice meals, beautiful clothes, well, buy them, give them to others. These are the best causes to create for that result that you wish for to come to you. All right. So I will talk about how we can counteract the delusions. I'll start with that tomorrow. I want to do a little bit more, but that's going to be too late. I prefer to do a few questions. Would you be doing Tonglang practice in the 2 coming days? Everyone loves Tonglang. We'll do a little bit today in relation to ourselves. What are we supposed to do when other people feel a strong attachment to us while we are working with detachment? They see our absence or our detachment as painful as they cannot understand where we are at. So detachment is something different than non-attachment. Detachment almost comes from an aversion, while non-attachment, we can be non-attached and at the same time very loving and compassionate towards others, actually even more. So I would say you have to check whether you are really practicing non-attachment. Non-attachment When there is non-attachment in the mind, it's much more easy for compassion and loving kindness to arise. Attachment prevents that. When we are in a love relationship, there is a mixture of love and attachment. If the attachment is very strong and then after some time starts to disappear and there is not much love, it's going to be difficult to continue that relationship. But if there is a lot of love in the beginning and also some attachment, you know, then when the attachment becomes less, the relationship will sustain itself on the basis of love. So love is focused upon wishing your partner to be happy, while attachment is focused upon, I want to be happy, and you have to give me that. And so that needs to be at least in balance, but you would like the love to be more dominant. The more love, the better the relationship. So what do we do with competitiveness as an exclusion? You know, these cause a lot of disturbances in the mind. And you know, we cannot change anything what other people try to impose upon us or upon the group that we are part of. But what we can do is we can create a relationship with ourselves in which we value ourselves for who we are. Not because we perform, not because we have certain qualities, not because anything, but just because we are a human being. And as a human being, we are worthy of respect, of love, of compassion. And when you can really feel your value on the basis of just being a human being, then competitiveness and exclusion is not going to hurt you so much. And it might be that you think, oh yeah, they're doing it again, you know. And you need to see that they are hurting themselves. Okay, one more. Can non-attachment and still being compassionate? Whoa, you're going too fast. I'm disappearing. Where was it? It's gone. I can't find it. I'm very sorry. Yes, but how do we react with them? So you don't. This is the person who asked the question about competitiveness and exclusion. You do not want to be reactive to them. If you feel your own value, you do not react to them. Then you can say, can I do something for the community that is imposing this competitiveness and exclusion upon its members? Maybe you can do something, but I think you need to come really from that you are good enough in yourself without having to perform in any way. And if everyone excludes you, that you do not exclude yourself, that you do not abandon yourself, but that you hold yourself. Exclusion is extremely painful. And you need to be able to withstand that pain before you can be of benefit in any way. All right. So I think in the course that I did on self-compassion, I talk more about how to create that foundation in yourself. If you don't mind, I want to go to the meditation from today, where we can practice a little bit on the self-compassion. Before the battery in the phone dies, yes. Philippa needs to connect that.
There we go.
Is it going?
Yeah.
Okay, wonderful. All right. I will read again your questions, and I thank you very much for all the questions, and I'm aware that there were many today. So I will go through them again and trying to incorporate as much as I can within the teachings. Okay. So give yourself a little bit of time to let go of all these words that you have heard. And become comfortable in your body. Your mind is present with your body and with your breath. And it might be helpful to breathe in and out deeply a few times. And then check in with yourself. How are you feeling towards yourself? Are you supportive of yourself? Do you love yourself? Or do you feel aversion for yourself or for aspects of yourself? How is it to be with someone who is giving you such feeling? How would it feel if you would be gentle with yourself? If you would listen to yourself deep, deep, deep inside. If you would understand yourself. If you would open your heart for yourself, how would it feel if you would see and acknowledge your inner goodness? If you would see your true nature, from which unconditional love naturally arises. Imagine yourself in a sphere of light, in which each and every aspect of you is accepted and appreciated. In which each and every aspect of you is loved for what it is. Every part of you is good. Every part of you is meaningful. Every part of you is an essence made of light. Shower yourself in that light. Let it cover your whole being. And let it penetrate every aspect and every layer of your being. This is what you truly are. From the sphere of light, bring to mind a problem that is troubling you. There can be something that recently happened to you or something from the past. And you might want to start with a small or medium-sized problem rather than your biggest one. It can be a physical problem, a painful or uncomfortable feeling or an illness. Or it can be something emotional such as sadness, hurt, or loneliness. Allow the problem to arise in your mind and feel how painful it is. How your mind wants to push it away. Talk kindly to yourself. And try to let go of your resistance to having this problem. When you breathe in, visualize that you accept the problem. You allow it to come close. Every time you breathe in, you take it on more. And some people use the image that This is actually a gift. This is going to help you to become more you, to connect more with your potential of wisdom and compassion. You breathe it in every time more, and you feel that it is your responsibility to take that problem. And then think, I'm not the only person in the world experiencing a problem like this. There are many others. And think of other people who may be experiencing the same or a similar problem, some to even a greater degree than yourself. Generate compassion for them, thinking and really feeling how wonderful it will be if all these people could be free from their suffering. And then you decide that you take on your own experience of this problem with the compassionate wish that by doing so, all those other people will be free from their suffering. Let go of your resistance, your fear, and your aversion towards the problem. And allow your mind to rest in a gentle, peaceful acceptance of it. By me taking on this problem, may all others who are experiencing similar problem be free from all their suffering. And every time when you breathe in, you take on more of your problem. And feel what happens to your mind when you do this. Does your mind relax? And if you feel that a meditation like this is beneficial, you can repeat that in your own time, not just with the problems that you are having now, but you can also take on problems or suffering that will happen to you in the future, or problems or suffering that has happened in the past. By taking on the problems, by breathing them in, we stop resisting them. We let go of our aversion. And once we let go of the aversion, we experience that feeling fully. And once it has been experienced, it is gone forever. It is a big cleanup that we do when we use this technique. And we make peace with whatever has happened in our life or is happening in our life. Experiencing negative feelings doesn't make you a negative person. Experiencing the result of negative karma doesn't make you a negative person. We have all done all the negative actions possible in the past. And so then sometimes causes and conditions come together and we experience the results of that. Experiencing the results of negative karma makes you a suffering human being who needs love and compassion. And then we can bring this meditation to a conclusion by dedicating all the merits that we have gathered from this meditation, but also from listening and reflecting on the workings of the mind. And we can dedicate all that positive energy that we gathered to the benefit and well-being of all living beings. And then I want to thank you for being here. The recordings of this, you put it on Facebook?
Yeah, I'll put it on Facebook and on YouTube.
So it will be on Facebook and on YouTube. The YouTube channel from Toshita Meditation Center, and I'll put it also on my YouTube channel. So you can repeat the teaching if you feel the need, or you can share it with others for whom it might be useful. So tomorrow we're going to talk about how we can deal with the disturbing emotions that arise in the mind. And we'll talk about the self-grasping mind, how we can find ways of reflecting and meditating in order to counteract that. All right. Thank you so much for being here, and I hope to see you all tomorrow. Bye-bye.